I'm super excited today to do an end of year review with you where I can discuss some things that you can review. If you haven't done an end of year review yet, this will be perfect for you. And maybe you can even go back to this episode next year, maybe at the beginning of December. You can listen to this episode again or maybe do a rerun. And we can have a look at what are some of the key things that you need to review at the end of the year in order to be able to set your vision for the following year. So in the following episode, I'll be sharing with you the vision of the show. So every single leader also needs a vision. You need a vision. Even the people that you line manage that are in leadership positions, even they need their own vision as a leader. So I hope that this episode will help you. I know that it will. And these questions, get a pen and paper handy or a notebook and pen because you're definitely going to need it. You might also have to pause me, go and grab a coffee, go and grab a smoothie, iced tea, whatever it is that you like. And let's jump in and do an end of year review. Do you wish that you could lead your team in a way that honors and glorifies God? Are you struggling to overcome self-doubt as a leader and have a desire to be more confident in your role? Welcome to the Woman of Faith in Leadership podcast. I'm Rika, and for the last decade, I've experienced my fair share of managing challenging employees and teams in middle management leadership roles. I committed my leadership journey to God, and it changed everything. And I'm ready to share everything I've learned with you. Now, if you're ready to lead your team in a way that honors God, grab that notebook and pen, and don't forget your chai latte, and let's dive in. Now, if you've never done an end of year review before, I would highly encourage that you do this at the end of every single year. And what you can do is grab your diary, see where did you spend most of your time during the year, so that you can tell, did I use my time wisely? And what did I spend my time mostly on? So if you, for example, go back to your diary and you go and have a look to see that, okay, I had 52 weekly meetings with this person that I line manage. Did we achieve anything? Or was it very wasteful? Do we need to move to fortnightly meetings? That's why an end of year review is so important, because you get to look back and you need to look at, okay, that was just one example of how you can do an end of year review for your time and in your calendar. So let's look at a couple of things that I would like to suggest for you to review. So the number one thing that you can review at the end of every single year is your individual growth as a leader. Go and have a look at your personal and professional development. You can go and have a look at what new skills did you acquire this year? What books did you read? And I hope that at the end of every single book that you read, you also go and do a reflection to say, okay, what are the takeaways that I really want to take away from this book? Because books are great, but sometimes they've got 50 ideas in, and we can't always implement 50 ideas. It's not realistic. So what books did you read and what lessons did you learn from those books? And then did you attend any conferences or workshops? And again, you do a reflection after every conference or workshop and determine, okay, what is it that I can implement immediately, short term? Maybe there's something that you need to implement on a long-term basis. Okay, so that's your personal and professional development. You can start there. And then in terms of your well-being, how did you prioritize your physical and mental health this year? Did you take enough time to rest and rejuvenate? And now for those leaders who are in brand new leadership positions, I can guarantee that you did not prioritize your well-being. And, even leaders, if you've been in leadership position for a longer period of time, maybe you're getting better at that, but you're still not prioritizing it appropriately. So my suggestion with this reflection in terms of well-being is that you really need to go and have a look. Did you burn the candle on both ends? Or did you spend an appropriate amount of time at home than you did at work? And if you were at home, did you spend time with your family, or were you working whilst you were at home? So I bet you probably already know the answer to that. You've got some guilt feelings surrounding that, and I'm talking from experience here. I definitely did not prioritize my well-being whilst I was still working in a full-time position. And now I know that, yes, it's extremely important to prioritize my well-being. And it's very hard for me as someone who has been very addicted to work, someone who absolutely loves leadership and who just wants to serve my team. it's been really, really, really hard to take a step back and say, okay, well, I need to prioritize my own well-being. Although I do want to serve my team and I want to give and I want to help them, I still need to prioritize me, because the saying is you can't pour from an empty cup. So therefore, you do need to take time to fill your own cup to ensure that you are not pouring from an empty cup, but that you can give to your team by actually filling your own well-being cup as well. So then the next thing that I would like for you to go and reflect on when it comes to your individual growth is your value alignment. Did your actions align with your personal and professional values this year? Tough question. Very, very, very tough questions. And are there some actions that didn't align? So you would know, because sometimes we do things and then we feel, like you lie awake at night thinking about that thing that you did, thinking I should not have done that, I should not have said that. And why is that? Because it does not align with our values. It just doesn't. So therefore, that is a very, very important question. And then the follow-up question to that is, were there any instances where you could have better embodied your values? So go and think about those circumstances, go and think about those actions that you took. And you're going to use this to improve yourself in the next year, because we all make mistakes. Nobody's perfect. Absolutely no leader in this whole world is perfect. Okay. So then I'd like for you to move on from your individual growth to team performance. Look, there's lots more that you can go into, and I've asked you a lot of loaded questions. There's probably a lot more that I can ask you and give you prompts, but I think that that's a good starting point, because that will possibly unravel a couple of other things that you'd like to look at and explore as well. Then when it comes to your team performance, let's have a look at your team's accomplishments. Okay, what significant milestones did your team achieve in the past year? Did they exceed or meet any key performance indicators? Did they maybe move from the storming phase into the norming phase, or maybe they moved from the norming phase into the performing phase? And if you don't know what I'm talking about there, I'd highly recommend that you go and listen to episode number 13, which is the 5 stages every team goes through, which is the Tuckman model and theory. So definitely go and have a listen to that episode. So that is a huge milestone. So what milestones did your team accomplish this year? And remember to share those accomplishments with your team. You might have done that already, but go and write them down and be proud of them, because they are an accomplishment. But then the tough stuff. What were the challenges? The challenges that your team faced this year? What were their biggest obstacles? And how did you and your team overcome them? So maybe there was a new team member that came on board. Maybe there was changes within your system that needed to change, or maybe you onboarded a brand new policy or a brand new procedure, or maybe you guys had to adopt a new procedure, and that was very tough for the team, because some of those team members have been working there for 15 years, and to change that procedure was very, very tough for them. Maybe somebody went through a really tough time personally and it affected the team. Maybe one of your team members passed away. I know someone who works with a team where somebody passed away, and that's really, really tough on the team. That team will be in mourning for a very, very long time. But also I feel really sorry for the new person having to enter that team, because that team has now gone through a terrible time together, and they've mourned together, and now the new person has to come in, and they'll be a little bit excluded because they didn't know the person who passed away. So those are all sorts of types of obstacles or challenges that your team could have faced this year. Maybe it was something financially. Maybe it was a team member that everybody loved leaving. So there's so many challenges that your team could face. Maybe the team was in the storming phase the whole year long. Maybe they just couldn't get along, and all you had to do was fight fires the whole time. So go and write those down, and I think it's important that you note those so that for next year you can set a vision surrounding that. Then in terms of team dynamics, how did your team function as a unit? Were there any communication breakdowns or conflicts that needed to be addressed? So in terms of this is quite crucial, because if you can identify those breakdowns or those conflicts or anything that needed to be addressed, again, you can set the vision and the tone for next year. You can go and see, okay, there was a major communication breakdown, and has something been done about it? Okay, yes, the team might have moved on and they're now communicating well, but remember that can happen again in the future. So if there wasn't training, or if there wasn't something that happened afterwards, maybe a meeting, maybe you just blew it off and you said, oh, well, the team's got to sort it out themselves. Well, maybe go and have a look at it again and think, okay, well, from a leadership perspective, what do I need to do here? And that's going to be what happened. And then for your future vision, which is the next episode I'm going to share, what can you do about that? So so let's move on. So we've done your individual performance, you as a leader, or your individual growth. We've done your team's performance. And now let's have a look at leadership effectiveness. And this is the last one that I'd like to share with you today. I've given you a lot of questions. I'll put the questions as well in the show notes so that you can go and have a look at them and work through them in with some tools or techniques. So I'm going to share those tools or techniques next. So the next thing I would like for you to look at is your leadership effectiveness. Number one is your decision making. How effective were your decision making processes? Did you involve the right people and gather sufficient data? Okay, so remember, before we can make decisions, we need to make sure that we have all the information. I mentioned this in the previous episode about making informed decisions. We need to make informed decisions. Were you able to make informed decisions, or did you just make a split-second decision and then an hour later you were like, oh, I really should not have made that decision. I should have waited. I was too quick, or my judgment was too quick. Or maybe it was positive. Maybe you made really good decisions this year that really played out well. So either way, you need to go and write those down, go and think about and reflect on those. And then if you made some really poor decisions this year, then again, that's going to help you to create your vision and set your vision for the future on how you can make that better and make sure that that does not happen again. And then in terms of your communication, how effectively did you communicate with your team, the stakeholders, and other key individuals? Now, this might be, you can reflect on this to say, I think I did so and so. However, one thing that you might have to do in this one that I would highly recommend is to seek feedback from others regarding your communication. There's no better way of getting feedback than asking other people. And I've shared this in another episode about end of year reviews. Is at the end of every single year, I would actually get people to review me. Nobody needed to do that. It wasn't part of any process in the company because my line manager reviewed me. But I actually would go and seek from some of the people that I line managed who were leaders and people who were non-leaders, so that I can get a full picture of what people thought about the way I did my leadership. And so some very valuable information came out there, things that obviously rubbed me the wrong way. But again, that's important because, yes, I didn't necessarily want that feedback, but it was so important to see that, okay, that was that person's perspective. Why did they think that? Was it because of a lack of communication? Was it because I didn't, because again, so I can give you an example. The example that I'm thinking about was regarding resources. The person said that I was quite selfish when it came to resources. And so, yes, that rubbed me the wrong way because I don't see myself as a selfish person, not at all. And the word selfish, again, has that negative connotation. And so I went to go and think about that. Number one, I was first very cross about that. I'll be honest. Like I've always said that I'm nothing but honest on the show. I did get not angry. I wouldn't say I was angry, but I felt cross and a bit disappointed that somebody would think that of me. And so I went to go and think about it afterwards, and I thought, well, maybe let me go and have a look. Was there ever a resource request that came through that I denied without having sufficient information? Maybe I was biased towards this person. Maybe whenever they requested something, I only denied their request, but I accepted other people's requests. So I actually went to go dig a little bit deeper just to find out, okay, like what was going on. And personally, I couldn't really find anything, but I still had to respect the fact that that person felt like that. And so moving forward, I ensured that I didn't come across as selfish. Again, like that was one person's perspective. It wasn't necessarily every single person in the company's perspective. But I made sure that, okay, the way I deal with resources in the future, maybe I need to rethink that. So yeah, I think that it's important that we look at these things and we get feedback from other people. And also, sometimes we do need to also let feedback just be feedback. We don't always necessarily need to do something with that feedback, especially if it doesn't come from your line manager, and especially if that it could actually just be a disgruntled employee who's giving you that feedback. So I also do think that we do need to take some of the feedback with a pinch of salt, but I think it's important that we take the feedback nonetheless, because there might be something really valuable in that. And then in terms of your delegation, so how effectively did you delegate your tasks and empower your team members? Okay, again, you can have an opinion on that, but to know exactly how you did that, you'd have to ask your team members. A really good one to ask is your leadership team, because your leadership team is meant to be able to be fully honest with you without the fear of retaliation from you. So if you've built a really good relationship with your leadership team, then I would say they should be honest with you. And then lastly, mentorship and coaching. Did you provide adequate support and guidance to your team members, and did you identify and nurture their talents? Again, you might have an opinion on that, but the best way to find out is by asking your team members. Again, I know I went through those very quickly, but I will put them in the show notes as well, so you can work through them in your own time. And now the final couple of things that I'd like to share with you when working through these questions is some tools and techniques. So the first one that I'd like to share with you is journaling. So as you're working through these reflections, journal about them. Journaling is a fantastic, it's a technique that has gained a lot of popularity in the last couple of years. And it's something that I also started doing, actually not whilst I was working full time. It was something that I started doing whilst I was working part time, because it was so time consuming. We don't always have to do full on long full sentence journaling like what I did. You can do bullet journaling. So I don't know if you've heard of bullet journaling before. Go and look it up. It's also a way just to do a shorter way of journaling. So you can do bullet journaling or full on journaling with long full sentences that you write. It's like write. It makes me think of writing in my diary when I was in primary school, or in like year 4, 5, or 6. Which is for my international friends, that is around the age of 9 or 10, or maybe even 11. So yeah, so journaling, you can do that, or bullet journaling, which is just a shorter version of that. Okay, so you can journal your reflections, your thoughts, your feelings throughout the year at the end of year review process. And then the next technique that you can follow is mind mapping. So mind mapping, again, a much shorter technique, and you can use mind mapping to visually represent your thoughts and your ideas, identify those challenges, those really good things that you had throughout the year, things that you did really well. And then you can also use it to brainstorm new possibilities. So I absolutely love mind mapping for brainstorming sessions. I love the visual side of brainstorming, and then using that mind map to set a vision. So I've been spending some time working through what everyone that did speak to me from the show, the listeners who put up their hand, whom I spoke to, working through all of that. And a really good way to do that was through mind mapping, putting all those thoughts and feelings together and saying, okay, how many people spoke about this topic, or how many people said that this was a big desire for them as a leader, or how many people said that this was one of the things that they struggled with the most. And so putting all those keywords together and thinking, okay, what episodes can I make of this? And I'll be sharing a little bit more about that in the next episode as well. And then the final tool or technique that I'd like to share with you is something that I already shared in the previous section, and that is 360-degree feedback. So please consider seeking feedback from your peers, your superiors, or your line managers, and direct reports, those people you line manage, to gain a more comprehensive understanding of your leadership skills and your effectiveness, and things that you can do better or should stop doing altogether. So there's nobody who knows you better than your team. It's great to have a line manager who gives you feedback as well. I do not discredit the line manager, but I often feel that, depending on your position, especially if you're in a middle management position, which most of you are from the listeners that I spoke to, which is very interesting. Most of you are in that middle management position. Your line manager doesn't necessarily see you do your work. You see your team doing their work, hence the reason why you can give them feedback. But quite often, your line manager doesn't actually sit there and watch you while you do your job. I mean, obviously, you don't sit and micromanage your team either. But sometimes your line manager, they're so busy line managing so many different people that they can't always give effective feedback. So the way we worked it out in my previous organization that I worked at is on a weekly basis. I would sit with my line manager and I would have to reflect on my own leadership with my line manager. So I would have to say, these were my challenges for the week. This was something that I'm very proud of. And this is some challenges that I'm facing for the next week, for the coming week, that I need your advice on. And so my line manager could create a real picture of where I'm at with my leadership. What does she need to mentor or coach me on? And so then at the end of the year review process, she would actually give me better feedback and help me set the vision for next year than just not having reviewed or seen me at all throughout the year. So I don't know what that looks like in your company in terms of your end of year review with your line manager, or if you've got an end of year like a performance review. I hope that you have implemented an end of year performance review for your team. If you've not done that yet, please go and have a look at episode 35, which is should you do annual performance reviews? And then the one that I did just prior to that one was episode number 34, go beyond boring goals with your team. So that also talks about setting a vision for your team, how they can set goals for the year, how you can help them set their goals for the year, and then doing those annual performance reviews. It's not too late to do annual performance reviews. Not today, maybe not at the beginning of next year. But maybe when you get back and you're more fresh and you're rested, you can go and think about these questions that I asked you. Maybe you can go and ask the same questions to your team. Help them come up with a goal or a vision for themselves for next year that can really just help them, and to set realistic goals, not just these fluffy, sometimes, especially with KPIs, they can sometimes be a bit fluffy if they're not smart goals, if they're not specific enough. Some people just don't know how to achieve those KPIs, especially if they're not set specifically enough. So I know that a KPI is meant to be a key performance indicator, to know when you know exactly when you've achieved them. But I have seen some KPIs out there that you would not know how to achieve them unless you received a manual. So let's make those goals smart. Let's make them specific. Let's make them measurable. Let's make them achievable. Let's make them relatable. And let's make them timely, so that your team knows exactly what to expect and how to achieve those goals. Okay, well, that is it. That is the end of the episode. And in next week's episode, I'll be sharing with you how you can use the information that you've used this week to set a vision for next year. I've purposefully not put the two episodes together because I really want you to take the time to do this end of year review. You're in that mode where you kind of don't know what day of the week it is, because it's that week before Christmas and New Year. And some of you are going to get antsy, where you kind of like, all right, I think I need to start preparing for my next year, and I need to start thinking about what next year is going to hold. This is the perfect way to start. This is a perfect place to start, to reflect on your year, and then just take a little break again. And then from there, you're going to go into next year, set a vision, set and create a vision for next year with next week's episode. Even if you listen to this next week, when you're back at the office, or the week after when you're back at the office. But use this end of year review, use these questions, and it will really, really help you to move forward. Well, God bless. I hope you enjoy your New Year's Eve when you get there. And if you're listening to this episode in January, I hope you enjoyed it. And I hope you have a super, super blessed day, the rest of your day. And may God bless you and keep you safe. Hey, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If so, would you take 30 seconds and leave me a 5-star written review on Apple Podcasts. It would mean so much to me to read your feedback. Also, it would really bless me big if you shared this episode with a fellow leader who might benefit from hearing today's message. And remember, put on the armor of God daily and walk by faith and not by sight. I'll meet you back on Monday for another episode.